This is Betsy from Agility with Sound. In the previous video, I explained the rationale for teaching comprehension and writing together. This video gives a snapshot of the resource, from the early books and heavily scaffolded writing assignments to the more testing ones later on. So first let's look at this one. The problem of a soccer-mad dad. It's very, very basic decoding. Short vowels, single consonants with CH, TH and SH, and ED, ING, ER and Y suffixes, with a handful of the highest frequency words. That's it. But the book is suitable for all students whose comprehension and writing need building. To reiterate the point I made in the first video, the simpler the decoding, the more students can focus on content. In this story is about Dad, a former soccer star, and his child. The child has no evidence that Dad really was a soccer star, looks at this overweight, unfit and sedentary man and is skeptical. The child is fed up with Dad and his mates dominating the television to watch soccer, the constant chatter about soccer. That's the problem. It needs a solution. Mum and this child decide to create a soccer den in the shed and in the process uncover the evidence of Dad's glorious soccer days. So, Dad is soccer mad. That's explained in the first several pages. I'll let you read that. So the child comes to this green button, and this is what the reader will hear. Do you think he or she believes that Dad ever won those cups? What makes you think that? Well, there's plenty of evidence so far that this child does not believe it. Then let's go to here. I so dislike his soccer pals coming and going on and on, soccer, soccer, soccer. My buddy will not come when Dad's soccer pals are here. That's for the child to read, and then listen to this. So that is the problem. Now will come the solution. So that's explaining the structure of the story. Yeah. Another problem. What are they going to do about that? And then we come down to this unfamiliar word, fetish. All along, we've explained that Dad is mad about soccer, and that is all he talks about. That word fetish. What other word or words could I have used instead? Think about Dad and his soccer. Does that help you work out what fetish might mean? So the clues could hardly be more explicit, but it is teaching students to look for those clues. And then a few pages on. And here you can see that polished is hyphenated the first time the students see it, but then one word the next time. That is so that their comprehension thinking is not interrupted by trying to figure out that word. There's a lot of words with ish or ished. There's another one down the bottom, finished, and rubbish, and so on. And then the writing that follows. This is the student's planning page. This is printable. So they have read the story about this problem of soccer and the solution from the child's point of view. But now Dad's friend has given you, the writer, access to Dad's journal, his diary, and you are to write what Dad is feeling. You're not told in the story. You must infer that. So the introduction is who your friend is and what you know about him and so on. And then the first extract, when he wasn't believed. The second extract is when they're cleaning up the shed. And the third extract is when he finally sees the soccer shed completed with his cups and trophies and so on in place. That's what the students see. But I'm just going to go back here to the teacher part. We know how the family felt about this soccer fetish and that Tommy's wife and child did not believe the soccer star story. How does Tommy feel about this? He's been keeping a diary and so on. Your task, you've been shown this diary and some entries. What do you read? You're to copy some of those entries. And down here, this first part here is repeated on the student's planning page. So this first sentence should hook the readers in, and it's been done for you. Basic background information comes next, that you knew Tommy when he was a star, and the final sentence is the main idea, that you have read some of his diary entries that tell the story of how his family learnt the truth. That's it for the introduction. So they're pretty much told what to write, but to put in their own words. And then down here, some vocabulary to teach. A couple of words is enough. And I've done a PDF on how to do that. And then the next one, when the first body paragraph, I'm saddened that my family do not believe me and so on, expand on that. This should answer the questions what, why, and how. That's the basis of a paragraph. Why did the family not believe Tommy? You will need to explain this in his words. And how does the family react when he tells them of his past? They don't believe him, remember. Lots of vocabulary. And then the second one, expand on that lead sentence. I can see that my wife and daughter are up to something and so on. Answering the questions, what, why, or how. What does Tommy think is going on in the shed? You may need to imagine this, make inferences. It must have seemed odd to him, and so on. And then the third paragraph. As you can see, how this should be structured is heavily supported. The lead or topic sentence is done for them. A suggested conclusion is provided. How the paragraphs work and what the content should be is really explicitly explained. There's an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a brief conclusion, all so heavily scaffolded that the students really can't get it wrong. This is most effectively done by 2 or 3 students working together, discussing what they are going to write here, discussing the best examples, talking about the best words to use. This discussion triggers thinking, which is, after all, the primary objective. It also goes a long way to removing that fear of writing, that fear of failure that affects so many kids. It is up to the teacher to decide if each student is to write their own final version or whether it should be produced as a group. Expect reading the book, teaching the vocabulary, teaching the relevant sentence structure, and completing the writing to take 6 to 8 lessons. There is a great deal more learning achieved from a little bit done well than from pages and pages of unstructured and thens. So that's the beginning. Then let's go down to An Imposter in the Nest is non-fiction. How the cuckoo gets away with conning other birds to bring up her chick. So here, at the end of page 2, she will land on a rim and pick up one dunnock egg, the host bird, in her bill. Maybe she will gobble it down, or perhaps she will just chuck it away. Listen to this. I can see why she would gobble it down, but why chuck it away? I have not told you here, but there are some clues coming up. So they're looking for those clues. And we come down here, and here's where the clues are. This one first, which is not related to that. There is that word imposter. What do you think it might mean? Well, it's in the context of she checks her eggs to see that they are all hers, checking that there is no imposter egg in the nest, a cuckoo egg. That's a pretty clear clue about what an imposter is. But here's the answer to the question that they were asked before. The cuckoo egg is bigger. It is speckled and hers are not. Listen to this. Have you figured out now why one egg was tossed from the nest? So that's about making inferencing across the text. And then this one. My Gran is still very easy decoding, but the writing is suitable for most students. Gran is a pain on the bus, demanding the driver stops whenever she sees something outside that she disapproves of. The bus driver waits for her, becoming more and more annoyed until he finally demands that she and her grandchild leave the bus. There are 2 writing assignments, both in the form of letters of complaint. The first one is from the driver, asking the bus company to ban her from his route. So you can see there are these green buttons with comprehension support scattered through the text. So this is the student's planning sheet for the first writing assignment. The bus driver wants this woman banned from his bus. And now you can see that the body paragraphs now include a concluding sentence. So let's go back to the teacher page. You are the bus driver and you are to write a letter to the bus company asking for this lady to be banned from your bus. You do not know her name. It will not help your case if you are rude about this lady or turn it into a joke. So the introduction, there's the main sentence done. Basic background information comes next, which bus and when, and that one passenger was a problem. The final sentence is your main idea that you want something done and some appropriate vocabulary to teach. And then here, the first paragraph, expand on that lead sentence. What happened when the bus stopped? Give one example. Vocabulary and the concluding sentence, which summarizes this paragraph and reminds the reader of its main point, with sentence starters for the kids, potential sentence starters. I know she is elderly, but I need to stress that she, and so on. And then the same for the second paragraph, which is about how you and the other passengers felt about this paragraph, and then all this, what you want the bus company to do. But then we'll move on to the next one. This time, Gran has instructed her grandchild to write a letter of complaint to the bus company about the way she was treated, taking the other side. I wish to draw your attention to an unpleasant incident on one of your buses. Very much the same introduction, but quite a different lead sentence down here, or topic sentence. My grandmother is a caring, responsible person. So let's go back to the teacher page here. To keep Gran happy, you need to persuade the company that Gran was perfectly reasonable and the bus driver was totally unreasonable. It will not help if you mention that other passengers were affected or that the timetable matters. You need to sound professional, not rude or whinging. So, there's the introduction and what to write in the introduction, and the body paragraph. Expand on the sentence that my grandmother is a caring, responsible person. What did Gran do from her point of view? And what sort of person does Gran think she is? You should use one example either from the book or one that you have made up, and so on. And then the concluding sentence and possible sentence starters. This demonstrates, or I need to stress that, or something else. Looking at the same incident from two different sides. The next one I want to show you is this one, Salimon. Readers are not told that salimon, sometimes called salmon, is a salmon. They need to work that out. The story is about one salmon. It describes her life cycle and explains the problem of the hydro dam on the river that she must swim down as a young fish, and then, after a few years at sea, back up the same river to lay her eggs. How have the builders of the dam resolved this problem? Students read about Salimon being flushed down the spillway and the fish ladder that has been constructed beside the dam for the salmon to make their way past. Most books don't have any illustrations, but this one needed it. A simple black and white sketch of what a spillway looks like and what a fish ladder looks like. Lots of comprehension support. I'll just show you one of them, this one. Suddenly. Suddenly is one of those words like one day. It is my way of telling you that things are about to change. Maybe this is where she does get past the dam somehow. And this is the writing assignment. You are a scientist. You have been asked to write a report for the Electricity Commission explaining the effect building a dam on the river will have on salmon. You have been asked to explain the problem so that all members of the Commission understand and to recommend solutions that work. So, a bit of background. Fish ladders and spillways are common in New Zealand and in Canada and elsewhere. So, on the planning page, this is what the students see. These first three lines here. Report to the Electricity Commission, the topic, and their introduction. That has been provided. I have some serious concerns about the effect this proposed dam will have on salmon. That's the hook sentence. Expand on that. You will need to explain in the introduction where salmon lay eggs and the problem of the dam, and your main idea that the needs of salmon can and must be met, and that solutions have been found in other parts of the world. This is a general statement only. The solutions come in the body paragraphs. Of course, there is here quite a lot of vocabulary. Body paragraph 1. This is what the students have on their planning sheet. All this. Explain how the salmon live and why getting up and down this matters with this sentence provided for them. Salmon born in the headwaters of a river spend much of their life at sea. Expand on that. For those who think that salmon can just go up another river and not come down that one, explain why getting up and down this particular river matters. Well, they're told that in the story, so that's just following making a summary. With a concluding sentence, with possible sentence starters, salmon always, or the route to and from, or something else. Paragraph 2. Young salmon heading out to sea need to get beyond the dam. So this paragraph is all to be about moving out to the ocean. You will need to explain the spillway and how this works for salmon and explain that it works elsewhere. So they're not given quite the same support. They really need to think about how they're going to put that in 2 or 3 sentences. And then the concluding sentence, which just summarizes the paragraph and reminds the reader of its new main point with sentence starters, possible sentence starters, without this escape route, or the dam does not, or something else. And then about getting back up the river. The dam is an even bigger issue for returning adult salmon. Sentence starters for the concluding sentence, plenty of vocabulary, and reminding students what needs to go in the body of the paragraph. What is the solution for adult salmon going upstream and how does it work? And so on. And then the conclusion. This next one is a little bit different. The shag tells the story of how traditional Japanese fishermen use shags, also called cormorants, to catch fish by taking eggs, fostering the young bird, and training them to bring fish to the boat. The birds have a ring on their neck to prevent them from swallowing the catch. How all that works is told in the book. These days, the fishing technique is a tourist attraction. So they have a picture of a shag so that they can imagine that. So far, I have told you a lot about how the shag lives. You know they are seabirds, that they eat fish. What else have I told you? So that's summarizing as you go. So have a look at that picture of the shag. Remember what I told you about how he swallows? What will happen now? a little bit of inferencing, but two writing assignments, both about writing a petition. So you have seen fishermen using shags to catch fish. You think it's cruel and unnatural, and you want to see this practice banned, and you decide to set up a petition. Now, in this petition, you cannot make claims that are simply not true, that the shags are punished if they do not catch enough fish, for instance. You can, however, express an opinion in order to persuade people to sign up, that wild birds should be free, for example. You will want to persuade people to think like you, that this is a cruel and should be banned. So I'll quickly show you the student page. This is the planning page. Wild birds should be permitted to lead a natural life. And then body paragraph 1, shag's eggs are snatched from under the mother's wings. Look at the emotion in that word snatched, and the concluding sentence. And then this one. But I'll go back to the teacher version. So the hook sentence has been done for you. And we come to this body paragraph when how those eggs are snatched. Expand on the lead sentence. This should answer the questions what, why, and how. How are eggs taken from the nests and the chicks trained? It's in the story. Explain it. Comprehension, vocabulary, plenty of it, and the concluding sentence summarizes the paragraph and reminds the reader of its main point. You could start with the mother bird is, or the little chicks are, or something like that. Move to the next paragraph. Young chicks from the moment of hatching become the fisherman's slave. More emotional language. Expand on that. Look at those words. And the concluding sentence, these captive seabirds, these birds. But the second one is also a persuasion piece of writing. The fishermen have heard that there is a petition circulating demanding that the practice of using shags to catch fish be banned. They are horrified. However, none of them speak English, and I've asked you to help write the rebuttal. So you can't say anything that's not true. You will need to focus on the positive and so on. Between a shag fisherman and his birds is a special one. That's in the introduction. Body paragraph, how the eggs are acquired and the chicks trained, with a lead sentence provided and space for a concluding sentence. But I'll go back to the teacher one. So let's just look at paragraph 1. Expand on that lead sentence. Shag eggs are carefully removed from a nest. They're getting the idea that that is like a title for the paragraph. The next sentence answers the questions what, why, and how, or other questions. Where do the eggs come from? How do the chicks learn to work for the fishermen? And then the concluding sentence with sentence starters and so on. So it's looking at it from an entirely different point of view, both persuasive pieces and both requiring the students to think about the text from two different places. Right. Going to skip quite a few books. All the level 4 and 5 books have got that kind of support. This one, the glider. The comprehension is more testing here, even though the decoding is still basic. This is about a truly audacious plan to escape from a prisoner of war camp at Colditz Castle. It's a true story. The inferencing is still quite basic, but there is a lot to infer. Here readers have been told about the different ways guards tried to take the prisoners' minds off escaping, including providing musical instruments to form bands. But the prisoners used this to their advantage like this. I imagine that prisoners pretty boring. I suppose most prisoners were happy to join in on these activities. And here, a number of bands form and so on. The music became the best way to signal what was going on. Someone sat at a window gazing out, just listening to the music. Maybe he had a mate on the other side of the prison, also sitting at a window, just gazing out. A mate who waved to him from time to time, or had a quick sip of water, or began picking his nose. So what is going on here? Is he having a sip of water because he is thirsty, or for another reason? What other signals might they have used? What can you think of? So I'll skip over to the writing. So books were provided by the guards, and one of the books was about how to build planes, with a chapter about how to build a glider. Now, what are pilots intent on escaping to do with that? This is a true story. This really happened. Students are told how they got away with building the glider, using the signals when the guards were coming, and so on. But they must write the plan to reach safety after escaping from the castle walls. There have been hints throughout the book what happened in previous escape attempts and so on, but students must make decisions about what will work in this case. What else needs to be considered and solved? As you will see, the support is further reduced. This is the students' planning page now. Hook, sentence, basic background, main idea. What this paragraph is about, but they must now write their own lead sentence. They must write the evidence and examples to explain that lead sentence, and the explanation explaining what this has got to do with the overall theme of the piece of writing. So it's a lot more testing. But they're guided through it. So body paragraph 1 is about appropriate clothing and luggage and how that is to be obtained. Remember, legitimate travellers have luggage. A stranger to an area who is wandering with no luggage is very suspicious and may be reported. They will not want to be dressed as a captured pilot, but what will help? A German army uniform, which they can steal before they leave, the clothing of a farm worker, something else. They will not want to be caught with anything that suggests they plan to hide out in the forests. So there's a lot there for the kids to decide. The lead sentence, this introduces the paragraph, tells the reader what it is. You write it. The evidence and examples for that is what clothing will be necessary, both to stay warm and avoid capture. Will they need extra warmth at night? What provisions will be in the luggage? It will be the bare minimum. You need to think about what they absolutely need and how they will obtain it. And then the explanation sentence, which I've called "so what?" Why is this important? How will it help them survive? and safely get to Switzerland without being captured. I explained further back that Switzerland is the neutral country, 600 kilometres away from the castle. And then the concluding sentence. You must now write your own concluding sentence. And of course, some vocabulary about identity papers. What papers will they need and how are they to be obtained? And they're told through the story about the numbers of quite a few of the prisoners who became very good at forging these things and what needs to happen to make them look genuine. They're told that in the story. And then, so what? Why their success depends on that. And the concluding sentence, and so on. And the last one I want to show you is this one, A Christmas Truce. It's actually another war story. There are not many, but 3 or 4. This one is called The Christmas Truce. The words include common vowel digraphs, but it is still very basic decoding. Readers can give their full attention to the content. This is another true story of Allied and German troops in World War One who called a truce on Christmas Day. It tells how the English and German soldiers met and mingled in no man's land, how they shared food and showed photographs of family and eventually played soccer. It's written as a letter home from one English soldier. He began the letter on the 23rd of December before Christmas, full of hate for the unseen enemy in the opposing trenches, and then completed it here on the 26th of December after Christmas. And so now he has a very different attitude. He is seeing the Germans as just like us, real people with families that they care about. And this is the writing assignment that follows. You were one of the generals in command of these troops. So this is inferencing and persuasion as well. You saw what happened on that Christmas day, and you are concerned about the effect it has had on your men. Will they still have the necessary to drive to destroy the enemy now that they've made friends of them? You think that this sort of friendly interaction with the enemy should never happen again. And so your task as this general is to write a report for the military commanders explaining your concerns. Remember, you are a general. You are not a comedian. So the first sentence should hook the readers in. The template looks very much the same as the previous one. No lead sentence, no conclusion, just how to set the paragraph out. Basic information comes next, a brief summary of what happened on that Christmas day. The final sentence is your main idea, what this piece of writing is about. In this case, the effect the day had on your men, and that it should never be allowed to happen again. Do not say why, that's for the body paragraphs. Vocabulary. Your lead sentence in the first one, introduce the idea you will be discussing in this paragraph. With evidence and examples, explain what happened here, with at least one good example that gives the reader a sense of the friendship between enemies. So all of these level in 6 and 7 books have that evidence and examples, the what, and the explanation, which is the so what. What? Why you think this is concerning. So what? Why is it concerning? and the concluding sentence, which summarizes the main idea. You need to show that this game links to the outcome in the next paragraph. So they're now learning to segue into the next paragraph. About the change in your attitude of the men, and so on. Introduce the idea, evidence and examples, explain the change in attitude that you saw after Christmas Day. Details are not in the book. You will need to infer this, and you should also make up a plausible example for the reader. And then the so what, the explanation sentence. Explain to your readers, who are the army commanders, why this matters. And then your concluding sentence. So this is what it looks like for the students on their planning sheet. Just a title for the paragraph, a summary of what you observed that day. And for here, the effect it had on the troops in the days after Christmas Day. You'll have to make that up. So that's it. There are 130 books in the collection, over 2,500 audio files, 90 writing assignments, and growing all the time, starting from really simple to really quite complex. When a student can do this assignment, they're well and truly set up for NCEA. But the earlier that they get those skills together, that this writing becomes instinctive, the better.